So dudes, we're back with another how-to. The poll for this one was between Fairy Tristan and Fairy Gawain, and Gawain barely edged out Tristan to take the dub, though if I put it that way, that just sounds like a dojin waiting to be written, assuming someone hasn't done that already. However, because the poll was very close, and I haven't been putting out videos for my Patreon as often as I'd like, since, well, IRL's been fucking me sideways harder than I'd like to admit, I said fuck it, I'll just make videos on them both. So, the how-to for Fairy Tristan should come out tomorrow at around the same time as this one. Anyways, back to Fairy Gawain, but most of you know her better as Barghest. She's a 4-star saber who debuted with Morgan's first banner alongside her and Fairy Tristan with Lost Belt 6, and she's mostly a straightforward buster wave clear saber. At level 80, she's got 13,521 HP, 8,721 attack, and 0.74% MP charge on attack. She's chaotic good, her notable traits are animal characteristics and demonic beast, and just like the OG Gawain, she also has a full berserker deck with a 5-hit quick, 3-hit arts, 2-hit busters, and a 5-hit extra. Her first skill increases her attack by 18% and her buster performance on sunlight battlefields by 18 to 28%, both for 3 turns on a 7 to 5 turn cooldown. This is the same skill that OG Gawain has, only slightly weaker. Her second skill again increases her buster performance by 20 to 30% and gives her a buff that heals her for 1000 HP, removes the latest buff from her target, and has a 500% chance to reduce their defense by 10% for 3 turns if she does remove a buff this way every time she normal attacks, all for 3 turns on an 8 to 6 turn CD. Her third skill reduces the party's damage taken by 500 to 1000 for 3 hits, 3 turns, and regens the party's MP gauge every turn by 10 to 15%, also for 3 turns on a 9 to 7 turn CD. Note that the party MP regen buff is a buff that Barget puts on herself, so if either she dies or she gets her buffs removed, the party loses this effect. Her passives increase her debuff resist by 15% and buster performance by 11%, and her third append gives her bonus attack against alter egos. And her MP is a buster AoE MP that first increases her buster performance by 20 to 40% and then deals damage to all enemies. It also increases her max HP afterwards by 3000 for 5 turns and reduces her skill cooldowns by 1. Generally speaking, Barghest is more or less your old school saber wave clear. Her most notable buffs are attack and buster buffs, she doesn't have a direct battery that gives her charge right away, and she has a buster AoE MP. Her main problem, however, is her stats, mainly her attack stat, which is pretty low at 8721, which is not what you want to see for someone who has a triple buster deck. Given how much of a muscle mommy she is, you'd think they'd given her a higher attack stat, but if it's any consolation, at least her HP is high enough to reflect that. More than enough, actually. Another problem she has is her first skill. Remember that this is the same skill that OG Gawain has, as I mentioned earlier, but unlike OG Gawain, who got a buff that lets him force the sunlight battlefield condition whenever he wants so that he can trigger that bonus buster buff on his own, Barghest doesn't have this perk, so you'll be missing out on her first skill's buster buff a lot of the time, which really sucks since, again, she has pretty low attack to begin with, and she needs all the damage buffs that she can get. And while, yes, obviously Koyan Light can support Barghest, her support isn't actually the most efficient here because Barghest already gives herself mainly buster buffs to begin with from her second skill, MP Overcharge, even her Mad Enhancement passive, and her first skill, of course, wherever it's applicable. So Barghest with Koyan Light oversaturates on buster buffs real fast and only has her own 18% attack buff from her S1 to buff stack with. Better than nothing, of course, but you look over at Melusine with all the bullshit she gets, you can't help but think to yourself, wow, 5-star privilege goes hard, doesn't it? So now that you can see how badly Barghest got fucked from her kit, just like how she got fucked in Lost Belt 6, is there anything good that I can say about her before all you Barghest simps track me down like bloodhounds and rip my ass apart? Well, remember that I said that she's a mostly straightforward wave clear, so it's time to talk about when she's not. Her second and third skills do have some utility that give her some potential for challenge quests, or just good old-fashioned face carding. Her survival of the fittest buff really fucks with enemies that have skills that give them a whole bunch of buffs at a time, so the more buffs they have, the more defense debuffs Barghest can slap on them whenever she hits them with their normals, which are also guaranteed to land thanks to their 500% chance to land, unless they have, of course, debuff immunity. And since defense debuffs are basically attack buffs for you, this gives Barghest some much needed buff stacking potential with their buster buffs. Also, take a shot every time I said the word buff in the last 30 seconds. Her third skill's damage reduction is okay. Ideally, you should try to stack it with another defense buff from a teammate somewhere, and in case you're a little unsure about the wording as in how the damage reduction effect lasts for 3 hits, don't worry, each servant gets 3 hits each, not 3 hits total for the whole party. That would be pretty bad. The MP regen is great, 45% total for the whole party after it's done, though it's best for supports like Merlin who have MPs that are actually relevant for challenge quests. Other than that, it's mainly a way for Barghest herself to get her MP more quickly, given that she only has 1 arts card, so she kinda needs it. The self-healing she gets on her second skill does complement the damage reduction, so together, along with her high HP, they should make Barghest very tanky if for whatever reason you need to run a tanky 4-star saber somewhere. This does make her good for regular face carding though, since she can keep herself alive for a long time and keep smacking enemies with her buster cards for people who haven't gotten to the looping or reloading meta of FGO yet. It's just a damn shame that her third skill is on such a long cooldown though. Like, what about this skill made Lazangle give this a 97 turn CD, and then they turn around and look at Melusine's third skill having only a 75 turn CD and be like, yep, nope, don't see anything wrong here. I guess the muscle mommy trope will never win against the cute and funny. Barghest bros, it's so over. Lastly, her max bond CE gives her a 30% MP damage buff and gives her normals a 30% chance to increase her max HP by 500 for 3 turns. Note that this means that every time she normal attacks, including her extra attacks, because they're also counted as normals, she has a chance to get a max HP boost, so she can stack these HP stacks real quick if she gets like 2 extra chains in quick succession, for example. It's an interesting CE. It's like Gil's that does the same thing, except his gives him more crit damage stacks, but it would have been nice if instead of max HP stacks, she got another offensive buff like attack buffs or something. And again, daily reminder that max bond CEs give fuck all for stats anyway, so you wouldn't really run this in the first place. The CE you should run on Barghest is ideally Golden Sumo. The 15% attack buff on it will help her buff stack better, and for those of you who play JP, you should now have no excuse not to have it. For those of you on NA who don't have it yet though, try to run MP damage buff CEs like HND or at least Aerial Drive, with buster buff only CEs as lowest priority if you have nothing else you can use. In conclusion, Barghest is more or less a standard wave clear saber with the unfortunate combination of a triple buster deck and a low attack step because for whatever frickin' reason, Lazangle thought that she needed to reflect her main character trait in her HP stat instead. She has some utility for challenge quests, specifically against enemies who like spamming buffs, but for most of you, she's mainly gonna be a trophy waifu whom you can point to as proof that, hey, no, you're actually a big fan of muscle mommies, but most likely you'll just be looking up sussy Melusine fan art when no one's looking. And for the record, I sure hope Summer Barghest was treated a little better. Surely she's better than regular Barghest, right? The poll for the next how-tos should be up on the Patreon, assuming I didn't forget about it like I did last time. Check out the Patreon if you want to participate, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching.